is up, App Nation? It is Steve P. Young, founder of appmasters.com, the place you go when you want action-packed content related to helping you grow your app downloads and, more importantly, those revenues. And today I've got a phenomenal guest. He's one of my early guests back in 2013. Yes, can you even imagine that far back? And he's gone on to sell his first startup, which we featured in 2013. And now he's got a great AI-powered news app that we're going to really break down. And the key thing is how he's using AI to increase the app and great engagement, hopefully increase those revenues and everything else that happens when you work on the engagement side. I know people are in the comments and we started a little bit late, but without further ado, let's bring in Ian Oh, fudge, I so screwed up his last name. Ian Mendiola. All right, here we go. Ian, welcome back, my friend.
What's up?
I was not going to say your last name, and then I was like, oh, I'll try it again, and then just got twisted as
No, you did. You did perfect. You did perfect.
Dude, how's life been? Thank you for coming back, because I was looking back at our journey and I was like, it would be really fun to catch up with a lot of the people that were early on and, said yes to me when it was just like a pipe dream. But how's life changed for you since the sale of Umano?
It's kind of been the same. I mean, I've just been, on the personal side, I had 2 kids. Well, I got married first and then I had 2 kids. And then on the professional side, I mean, I've just kind of been doing the same thing, building products, trying to really improve the craft. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun over the past few years.
Well, you got this new product up, AI powered news, Gem. Talk to me about what prompted you. I know AI is something that we're all talking about. Frankly, it was something that's been around for quite some time, but talk to me about Umano was, for those who don't remember, it was an app that I absolutely love when it launched. It reads the news to you. And I was like, this is perfect. I love audiobooks. I love podcasts. I would just love to listen on the go. But talk to me about the genesis of Gem.
Yeah. So, Gem started first and foremost for our love for news and media. It's why we started Umano. We were just what most people call infovores, where we just love consuming content. And so this kind of carries on that thread. When we were kind of looking at the landscape of technologies and potential things we could work on, obviously generative AI was one of the big things. And we had this general thesis that, like most people, AI would kind of change a lot of different categories. Many people were thinking about AI in the context of improving SaaS tools. And you didn't hear much around the consumer side other than kind of the profile picture apps. And so we started from that. And, we asked ourselves, what's AI really good at? And it's really good at generating content. It's obviously really good at summarizing. And so we kind of put the two together and we thought, hey, we could probably apply it to news and create an AI-powered news app. And the North Star for us was to basically build your personal AI journalist. And that was sort of the North Star. And then from there, we kind of, built out the product to be what it is today.
Was it hard to come up with such a succinct North Star?
Not really, because I don't know, it just everyone was talking about the concept of co-pilots, so that was kind of already incepted in our head, and so it wasn't that much of a leap to think about what would a co-pilot look like if its only job was to essentially write you news articles that you were interested in and fit the format that you liked consuming things in.
I like it.
Yeah.
Letter grade was I remember Umano. I used to use it. I used it back in the day.
It's crazy. I mean, you could search that. You could search Umano now and you could find Reddit posts and Quora posts about people, first of all, being so pissed that, Dropbox had shut it down, and a lot of people asking for us to bring it back and that sort of thing. And so I've debated maybe bringing it back as a lifestyle business, and it does make sense. It's more scalable now that you could obviously use generative AI to create the audio, but it also makes it where there's less of a moat in terms of building a product like that. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe in my spare time.
Yeah, Umano, if you guys don't remember, you guys had professional voice artists that would read the news.
Yeah. And that was kind of the hard part of the whole thing,
Yeah.
was like building up that marketplace. Um, that it wasn't easy to replicate that overnight. So yeah, we had voice actors that would record content every day for us.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. All right, I want to get into this LinkedIn post that you had, which really honestly prompted me. I was like, oh, I saw Ian. I was like, oh, what's Ian up to? And I was like, oh, I should reach out to him. And so you've been able to 2x your click-through rate for the push notifications. And obviously for a news app, we're going to rely on push notifications. And you got a whopping 16% click-through rate on your push notifications. Walk me through this post.
Yeah, so I posted it because I was getting a lot of comments from early users DMing me, and they were saying like, "Hey, I really love the push notifications; they're so spot on." And I was getting like a handful of this sort of feedback every week or so, and then at some point, I got the idea while I was at the gym that like, hey, this could actually make a really good LinkedIn post because I'm
Yeah.
trying to like post more.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of what incepted it. Then my co-founder and I went into the actual data. We wanted to see like, hey, are what people telling us, is that like factually true? And we were like tracking our kind of tap through rate, and then kind of putting that against benchmarks. And like, holy crap, like this is actually 2x. This would make one, that's really awesome, and two, this would actually make a way better LinkedIn post than I thought, because there's actual data
Mm,
to support it. But yeah, so that's kind of like what incepted the post. And I just wanted to share my learnings around like, hey, we actually used AI in this small but novel way to actually increase tap rates on notifications, which is a big deal when you're like building mobile apps, especially at scale.
I like it. And was it just about, walk me through this post, like scoring? We're using signals. So like, what are you thinking about? Is it just like personalized to every single person as well? Like, what are you doing from an AI perspective to get such a high engagement?
Yeah, so there's sort of two parts to it. The first part is the AI is, we use generative AI to kind of drive the feed. So the experience in the product is you like swipe through content like you would on TikTok.
Hmm.
Um, and we use some sort of heuristic based stuff, but also some AI based stuff to actually like rank that feed. And that happens basically by looking at things like, what is the actual content of this article, not just what are the keywords or whatnot, or what category is it in, but like what is this actually talking about, and then comparing a user's previous uh, interactions with the app to like this new piece of content. Um, and then we would use that to basically score relevance. And then what you end up with is like a feed that's supposed to go from most relevant to maybe least relevant.
Hmm.
And then for the notification, it was literally about just taking the top item in the feed, because that was supposed to be the strongest signal one, and then sending that as a notification. So that was kind of like part one. And then part two was using AI to actually generate the copy for the notification. Um,
Interesting.
and and as I said, when I led with the generative AI, and these LMs are really good at creating content. They're actually like pretty good if you give it the right instructions to actually like craft a really good headline, um, and to increase your chances that people will actually click on it. And so that's kind of what you're saying here.
I like it. Share what you want, Ian, but I'm gonna poke and prod. But
Sure.
what are the learns you've got in terms of like, why not just use the headline of the article? Why have AI create a better headline that actually, why have the notification messaging?
Yeah. So if you think about a headline, that it's like, not to knock on media companies or journalists or whatever, but like, they write their headlines in a certain way.
Right.
They're optimizing for clicks sometimes, and it's not really that informative, and it's what people call clickbaity. Sometimes the styles are a bit old, and they're actually like not interesting enough to click on. Whereas like if you go on something like Twitter, you have all these people that have really crafted how to get people to engage with content in like, I don't know, 200 characters or less or whatever. And
Mm,
so, and so we were like, well, how do we get that? Like, how do we get like really good, punchy Twitter like tweets in the form of a notification? Because that seems to be what people really like to engage with.
right.
And so, without going into too much detail about it, we basically used other people's tweets that we really liked, and
Ah,
that like wrote really good 200 character summaries of like news events and different accounts, and then we use that to basically do a few shot learning strategy on getting the AI model to like basically effectively produce the same type of style and format as popular tweets. And so that ended up being better than just what one person at some X publisher would write themselves.
I like it. I like it. So you would take, oh wow, this is great, man. This UI is amazing.
Thank you.
This is awesome. And that's it, huh? This is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and you could share it obviously, and you could. I mean, we're kind of like our entire team are like a bunch of engineering nerds. So if you click on the top right, you could change
Okay.
the theme to like a ChatGPT theme or like a solarized theme and stuff like that. And so we have some fun little features here. But yeah, the core is really swipe through AI generated kind of like news summaries, and then if you want to learn more, you swipe up and you get AI generated points.
I like the original one. The dark. This is pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Why launch as a free app? Like it's completely free right now.
It's so number one, it is early. Like we just launched maybe like a few months ago, and so we're
Yep.
really trying to encourage people to like use it so that we could get feedback. So that's like number one. Number two, media and content is really hard because there's a lot of it, and these days consumers expect it to be free. And so, it's not completely obvious out the gate to like charge for something like this. And so I think that's like the main reason why that we decided not to charge for it up front. But we've obviously discussed it internally.
I mean, I would love your perspective on AI and what, you know, I love that push notification. So if this is the reason, but I had this question for my previous guest who's talking a lot about AI. Like, what is one of like the most proudest things you built with AI within the last few months?
Well, it's got to be Gem. I mean, it's
Did you use AI to code the gem too? You're like, no,
no,
we
no,
know how
no.
to do that.
No, we know how to do that part. But I did use ChatGPT a lot to like basically help me build the iOS app. So,
Nice.
I think I have a huge productivity boost with that. But the reason why I'm proud of Gem, that's like the one that I like the most out of all the AI products that I've done, is it's actually an amazing use case for these generative models. Like I've been down the path where you try to use generative models to like automate workflows, like
Mhm.
at work or whatever, or like you try to give like this assistant instructions and it's supposed to do this thing. The thing that I found is that like these LLMs are pretty, they're not the greatest at things that need to be like deterministic, right? Because one time you'll give it an instruction, it will do exactly as you will, and at some point, if there's like one modification, it will go off the rails and then not do the thing that you do, and that's really bad. Let's say if you were infusing this as part of like your banking service or your investing product, you're like, buy me, $10,000 worth of Google stock, and somehow you miswrote it or misinterpreted you, and somewhere in the system it did the wrong thing, and then you ended up buying $10,000 worth of something else. Like that could be really bad. And so what they are really good at though is I actually think hallucination is a feature, and the ability for it to actually generate content that you wouldn't expect is a feature. And so applying that superpower of LLMs to something like news and content is actually like a really is like a, in my opinion, using the LLM in the right way and what it's good at. And so that's kind of why I really liked it. And then, you saw the app on the surface, it seems really simple, but the pipeline end to end, which I think a lot of people don't understand to get this thing to work,
Yeah,
requires a lot of things to go right. What from like how you ingest the data to like how you clean the data to like how you get the prompts you use to get the LM to do what you want it to do, to then have this like really elegant output that a consumer can use right away with AI basically in the background.
I like it.
I think it's
Hey,
really challenging to do that. So that's why I like this. I like this product a lot.
I do want to commend you on one thing. I like to look at the little things that the app does, right? Here's the thing that I really love. The fact that you kind of like you don't just show the key points all at once. You kind of just like that little slight animation. Really, really cool.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that this is all pre-computed already, right? Like we've already
Mhm.
done the work, otherwise it wouldn't be performant. And we decided to like keep that. Um, to basically communicate to the user, because they're used to their experience with ChatGPT, that this is AI generated, and to kind of have them infer that to be the case. So that's why we decided to keep it. And then yeah, it creates this like cool effect as well.
I love it.
Yeah.
You get a roll for that. All right. I want to say hi to a few people. What's up, Nurix? You were the first one to come on. Happy to see you, bro. Always on live stream. Ricardo couldn't make it, but he wanted to just pop in and say hi. And then I just said, Luis said he's here. Miguel's here. We got Adrian. Hey, Adrian. All right. And then we got Kathy. We're going to be looking at Kathy's app. She's got a Taro reading app. I think I said that right. What's up, Kevin? Dylan, Romaine is here, number 7, and then Cooking Gent as well. And then we did have a, what's up, Sam? Any reason why Gem is iOS only?
So on the engineering side, like, we've debated using React Native and doing native, and I've just always been an iOS developer. And so I'm most comfortable in that. So that's kind of point number 1. Point number 2 is like when I surveyed, my senior engineering friends at different companies, really popular ones like Discord and Snapchat and things like that. When I got their feedback, there was always an issue around performance with React Native when you're really trying to do something unique with the UI. And so that didn't make sense. And then number 3 is because it's early stage, like you need to get the early stuff right first. And so it's fine to just have one platform on iOS, get that right, then expand into other platforms. So those are the main reasons why we decided to stick with iOS.
I love it. I'm working on, so Cooking Gent says, I'm working on a football live score app and I want to incorporate an AI system with access to the internet. Ian, any advice on what resource to look at?
Let's see. I mean, so we use OpenAI for ours. And, obviously there's a whole bunch of other providers. There's a bunch of open source models. We found OpenAI to be like the easiest to get off the ground. And so if you're like in that 0 to 1 phase and you're just prototyping stuff and you want like the easiest thing, I highly recommend kind of going down that path and not getting too bogged down by finding the correct model or finding the open source one that has all these features XYZ. I think you could move really fast prototyping your app on something like OpenAI. And then, once it's working in some sense and there's a reason to move off to another model, then you can start doing that. But in the earliest stages, I'd stick to OpenAI.
I like it. And then Sam has a question. Sam, Technical Lab. I want to spin this question a little bit. Do you plan on launching Gem for the Android store? And then I've got a follow-up after that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, once we feel like we got the core right with the iOS app and there's obviously enough demand across other platforms, then yeah, definitely we'll build an Android app.
So Sam, here's the better question. I knew he was going to say yes. The better question is, what metrics do you feel like you need in place before you launch the Android app?
Good question.
Oh, thank
so
you.
right now, the big thing for us is obviously figuring out customer acquisition. And so I think like once we feel good about customer acquisition and we feel like we can grow the thing, then we'd probably start to expand into other platforms.
Okay, and we got questions coming in. Letter grid word game. Thank you. Does OpenAI charge for API usage? So do you need to make sure you monetize at some point?
They do charge for API usage, but the cost of that has been going down dramatically over the past few months. I think we cover like 80% of the news, right? That I think most people would care about. And I think our bill is something like $400 a month or something like that. So, wow. Totally affordable for a venture-backed startup.
But does that change as you get more users too?
No, it doesn't, because they're all consuming the same content. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I like it, man. I like it. Any ideas? Like, do you have any predictions on where this AI trend is going?
Which part of it?
I don't know. I don't know, man. You start. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I think the big thing on everybody's mind, and I kind of share this as well, is because it's just been so easy to adopt and deploy that like all the value so far, at least on the application side, is accruing to like the big companies. Like I think Google just launched like generative AI across all their like workplace products. And that basically just kills a bunch of these startups that were like, we're going to be the AI powered for, docs, or AI powered for like email or whatnot. So I think that's where it's kind of different. And so I think everyone's trying to figure out like, well, what are the things, what does a startup need to do in order to like actually win in this, given that like incumbents are um, doing such a good job adopting the technology. And so that's the big question on my mind. I think my best guess is that we'll figure it out, and there'll be some sort of like new way of thinking about how people use applications that only a startup could actually pull off.
Yeah.
And then we'll look back on it and be like, oh, well, that was so obvious. You know, so and that'll probably happen in next few years. So
Okay. Hey, Ian, I want to circle back to what you said before you launched the Android. You want to figure out like user acquisition. Okay, let me dig deeper on this. Like, are you looking for like user, because you don't have monetization on yet, are you looking for the lowest cost per engagement? Like, how are you measuring user acquisition, and when is the right signal to go into Android?
yeah, we're definitely, a lot of the kind of experiments that we run. They're on the kind of more on the organic side of user acquisition.
Hmm.
Um, just because off the bat we know that it will be, because there's a lot of newsreader apps and things like that. Off the bat, doing paid act will be very expensive. I think we ran a quick test, and I mean, by no means was our campaigns optimized or anything like that, but off the bat, I think it was something like $15 or $30 per install, and it was just insane. And if you
Wow.
look at the average kind of like um, the average revenue per user for like a news app like this, it's on the order of like a few dollars or something like that.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense. So we're all the experiments you run are kind of more on the organic side, and so we're really thinking about like, how do you create really good content that people want to share, and then make it easy for them to be able to do that.
Mm, I like it. Hey, one curious question I had personally was like, since the sale of Umano, you've got a victory under your belt. Has your approach to building a startup changed? Now you've got some money in the bank, and you got these connections, you've got this win, might be easier to raise money. Like, how's your approach to building that startup changed?
In some ways, it's gotten easier. In some ways, it's actually gotten harder. So, on the ways that it's gotten easier is because you do have that track record, getting started is a lot quicker, from like the recruiting or fundraising standpoint of things. So that's obviously like really good. On the difficult parts though is uh, like whenever you kind of build something, you try to learn from your last experience, and then you have all this knowledge about like what makes a startup bad or a product bad, and you
Okay.
lose that like superpower of being totally naive to like really dumb ideas, which is often where there's some magic. And so like, we try to stop ourselves from doing this, but we still do it. But like, we'll like over analyze the crap out of a product, or we'll say that's a dumb idea and there's no shot that will work. And those are the same things that like a new founder would look at and be like, yeah, 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 whatever. And then they'll go off and they'll try the thing. And then
Mm,
it just so happens, with a combination of skill and luck, that thing that they tried, which sounded really stupid, actually ended up working. And so I think a lot of like repeat founders uh, fall into that. But on the flip side, like repeat founders also really good at like identifying the very risky things that are just like outright like really dumb ideas.
yeah.
And so they do get a head start uh, from first time founders in that regard.
Okay, I'm gonna follow up. The One of the risky things, do you remember something that you're like, oh, a lot of founders, maybe first time founders, do this one risky thing that it's just not worth the time?
Less on the risky thing, but I think what second time founders are really good at is like this idea of actually identifying a problem and then being able to validate it and then building a solution against that.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I'm sure there's second time founders that still fall into that bucket and do that, but you'll often see that with first time founders is they'll work on something because it's cool, or because it's a technology, and they don't have like a real problem in mind. And so that's the one thing and they don't really know how to validate it in the right way. And so that's the one thing that I've seen second time founders do really well is they can run through that process a lot better.
Yeah. How did you validate Gem?
Good question. Because we're engineers and we can build, that's kind of the best way that we could validate things. Like that's number one. And so we just launched a really basic version of the product. It didn't have a lot of the features that you saw. And then we just wanted to get initial signal on whether or not people who like to read news enjoyed that format. So that was number one. Yeah, that was like the main thing that allowed us to sort of validate it in a sense, but there's still a lot of validation along the way that we have to do.
In terms of Umano, you're saying like, you know, the second time founders, hey, this is a bad idea. And then you're like, do you remember something you're like at Umano, you're like, hey, well, let's try this crazy idea because let's just see if this works.
I mean, the whole app, the whole business idea was that, right? Like,
dude, for sure.
I think as a second time founder, you'd be like, oh, what? Why would you build a business that finds voice actors across the world to then record content and upload it? Like, it just sounds like such a wild idea that I think like most seasoned people would talk themselves out of.
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons, whether it's, hey, it's too hard to build this marketplace, like where are you going to find them? You know, it's a small TAM, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think you would, second time founders would prompt those questions and then they wouldn't even try it. So I think the whole thing falls into that category.
Now that you've sold Umano, do you feel like there's added pressure to do something even bigger at all?
No, because I think like, yeah, not really. Because I mean, when you're building a startup, I think like you're always starting from the point where you want it to be really big, especially if you're going on the venture track. I don't know many people that start a venture-backed company and are like, I want to work on the small thing. So I think you're always kind of, whatever the largest thing in that moment is, you're always trying to go for it.
I like it.
You know?
And do you have, all right, here, I hate these number one things, but I'll do it anyway. Do you have your like number one startup advice to founders building an AI product?
Oh, huh. I mean, it's got to go back to what I said earlier because it's just so important. So hate to beat a dead horse, but if you're good, like, don't just play around with the technology and build something because it's like, I mean, it's always great to like tinker with things, but you know, don't try to build a business because you know, there's a new technology and starting from the technology. And really, I don't think anything's changed with generative AI. I think you still need to go back to the basics around identifying the real problem and making sure that it's like a big one that people want, and then go from there. Versus, you know, being tempted to start from the technology and then trying to build a startup around that.
Do you have an example?
Like, I don't have specific examples of companies in mind that
But
fall
like
into
somebody who's
that.
starting with the technology and then trying to build a product out of it versus like thinking about the product and using the technology to help support the product.
So I don't have specific examples of companies that have done that because I think they either eventually figure out a problem and then are doing well. But you know, it is something that happens where it's like people will be like, oh, the iPhone's out. What can you build with an iPhone? And then, you know, they start with that and like, do people want to use like, how can we give people like, I think one maybe category of things is like, you know, how there was like those location based like social products where you could like see where your friends are at.
Like
or maybe like the products where it's like meet up with your friends and organize things. It's kind of like, oh, we have access to location. What's some cool shit we could do with it? Oh, what if we just showed everyone like where your friends are? And build a business around that. But then if you like unpack it, it's like, well, why do I want to see who my friend is? And can't I just send them a text? And I don't really have that problem.
Right.
So I think that's probably the best example.
I like it. It's a good one. You think on the fly. It's hard, but that's a good one, Ian. There you go. All right. I got a few more questions, but let's get into the app audit section of our show. And we like to
Cool.
start off. You need some help on some dad jokes. We like to start off every app audit segment with some dad jokes. Kathy, if you got a dad joke, help Ian out because he needs one. All right. Ian, I don't have the best ones. I think you're going to win, but usually I like to play for drinks or dinner on whoever loser pays. All right. All right, Ian, I got one since we're talking about mobile app show. I've got one right here. Ian, I think my phone is broken. I pressed the home button, but I'm still at work. Ian, Ian, can you put in the comments below? We'll play for something. No. Okay. We got Jia Yin. I think I said your name right. Jia Yin. He or she wants feedback on UI, UX, and monetization. So this is a that helps you just really figure out how much battery life you have. So anything on the App Store presence you want to call out, Ian?
Okay, so first of all, there's nothing to really critique about this. I think this is great. I mean,
yeah?
I love the name.
Uh-huh.
It's not like some generic one. It's very specific around what it does. The value prop is very clear. Never forget to charge. I have done that many times in the past. The actual screens and the visuals are really well done as well. At least on the App Store. We'll get into the actual app, but from what I see on the App Store screenshots, it definitely looks really polished. So yeah, good job on that.
I think the thing that I would say is I would probably move the never forget to charge right here and then, kind of show like, hey, all your devices in one simple, UI or one simple interface, right? One simple screen to see all your devices. Because a lot of times it's the iPods or the iPods, the AirPods that really run out of battery for me. And I have no idea. It just sneaks up on me. Usually my phone's constantly charged, but not my AirPods. But yeah, that would be my winning point. I'll be like, oh yeah, like I always know how much life I have on my phone, but I never know on my AirPods. And so I can see it in one simple widget.
Yeah, actually, on that point, the exquisite widgets decorate your screen. That's a very interesting kind of thing to lead with. Usually, like things around like customizing, like decorate your screen, et cetera, and visuals are things that I've seen normally be left to the end and kind of, unless that's like the core thing. But it seems like the core, yeah, it seems like the decorate your screen part. Yeah, I'm not sure, but
I do like this app though. I'm like I was like, you know what? You're right. I want to know how my AirPods are doing. That's it. That's really it.
Yeah, I think maybe a better like text for that first screen would be like all your devices battery life in one screen, like something like that. That way it's like, okay, this is clearly what it does. And then you can kind of look up there and you're just like, okay, never gonna forget to charge it. And you can kind of piece together what the problem solution is for sure.
Yep.
And then the name is great because it's simple, it's catchy, and it's very descriptive around like generally what the product's about. But that's probably the only thing. Like first screen would be like, what's the actual solution?
I wonder if there's like other things like maybe a Tesla and you can see how much, miles you got left. This would be interesting as he expands on this. But let's take a look at the app. I really like where he's headed. All right, here we go. Notification, don't mind that. Oh man. All right. You go first. That's all I saw. That was the first screen. That's it. This is where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, normally what I like to do is like on the main screen is to have some like call to action about what's the first thing that I should do. One, it just like looks visually more pleasing because it fills the screen. Obviously, it doesn't look like broken in a sense.
Right.
And then two, it just makes it very clear like what the user is supposed to do next to get started. So I think it's missing that like that sort of splash screen or that empty state, if you will. Initially I thought it's because your internet broke or like, and you weren't connected or something. So yeah, I think that's a big one.
I know. I was trying to tell you. Nope. This is literally what I'm saying. All right. Well, yeah. So here's what you can do. Okay. Remind users. Here's how I like optimal onboarding. Remind users what the app does. So all your batteries in one simple interface, right? Like you can see it with, and then you swipe, and then you like customizable widgets where you can see everything. And then you ask, like, hey, what of these devices do you own? AirPod, iPad, Tesla, I don't know, whatever your users, but like ask them that and then be like, cool, then show them the paywall because you want monetization help. You got to show your paywall during the onboarding process. And it's like $5. Like you should be killing it with this or $5. And then even after they say no, you take them to add the device. Like boom, add your device. This should be the stream. You want to lead users because, like Ian said, this is what I learned. I'm not a designer, Ian, but there's an empty state, there's a full state, and there's an ideal state. And most designers design for the ideal state. And I was like, what does the empty state look like? And your empty state, Jian Yin, is but ugly. It's not. It's just too empty. Like I don't know what to do because Ian thought it broke, and I was like, nope, Ian, this is how it looks like. So just almost like this is the next.
Are you tapping the plus button up there to like bring that up?
Button. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can't see. I am tapping the plus button up there.
Yeah, I mean, like I think you were saying this, but you can either have the list of actions directly on there, or you can even, if you want to like optimize for what's fastest, you could have a button that essentially does what the plus button does on the right, but it's just clearer that like, hey, this is what you should do. And I liked your thoughts around like reiterating the value prop. Though like, that's really useful if they like close the app and then they come back and like, what's this thing again? But I suspect that like right off the bat, if they're going through the install flow and they've made the conscious decision to install it, they should have some sense of what the product does.
Right. It's still searching. Maybe it needs something, but yeah, that's what I would do. I think you got a great app, man. I think this is a great idea. I've seen like these little niche apps make a lot of money. And so for an app like this, I think you can even test pricing a little bit. Oh, personal fan. So I didn't notice, like, be careful with these long paywalls. I do promote a long paywall, but at the same time, look, I am on an older iPhone 8, but at the same time, like most people don't know.
Yeah.
And based on the UI that I can scroll. And so that was missing. And I think for an app like this, you can charge a lot more. Like people have thousands of dollars of devices that they want. So like $5 is really nothing for most people for an app like this. And so think about ways where you might be able to charge a bit more than just $5, maybe $10, play around with pricing because the higher you go, again, we have thousands of dollars of devices that we're trying to get an eye on. And it's a niche market. And so that TAM, total addressable market, might be smaller, but at the same time, that average order size or revenue per user goes up because, you're an iPhone user. These are $1,000 products.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, the thing below the fold is such a huge thing. I mean, I'm sure if you track the funnel, you'd see like, hey, I don't understand, why aren't a bunch of people converting? And then you realize it's something as simple as like, hey, people just didn't know that the button existed. And that happens a lot, yeah, that's yeah, that makes sense.
I've seen this, Ian, where we've been playing around with certain permissions during the onboarding and certain permissions. I don't have any data on this Bluetooth, but I do have data on photo and video, right? When you ask for a photo video editor app, makes sense. Asking for the photo video permissions before the paywall actually increased the conversions versus asking for it after. And so that's why I'm advocating for an onboarding process like you can test like asking for it. Right now, like I try to add my trackpad and I couldn't add it because you needed Bluetooth, but you never asked me for Bluetooth. I was just trying to add my trackpad, right? Like, so that's why I'm kind of like, have that during the onboarding. You can say, look, hey, we can connect if I have a trackpad, right? And then I go, yeah, I would love to know the battery life of my trackpad. Okay, cool. You need to turn Bluetooth on. Boom. Now you got me. And now I'm way more engaged so that when I'm hitting your paywall, it's like, makes sense. I'm ready to buy.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you don't want any friction the moment that I had the intent to like actually purchase something, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, one of the things that I found is asking hard things like the permissions is best to do up front, because they're like in the most excited state, right? Like they've just installed your app, you have not let them down yet. And so like that's your chance to basically get them to like do this thing, which is like, give me access to your photo or your camera.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you kind of wait a little bit down the funnel, it's like, okay, they went through your app and they're like, I don't get it. What's this blank screen? Oh, this UI looks janky. Do I trust you? And then suddenly you start to ask for like microphone permissions, and you're like, no. And then they like remove, and then you go to experience like the value prop. So yeah, definitely. And you see a lot of really good apps do this. They definitely ask for those permissions up front.
Yeah. Be careful with the health. We've seen that asking for the health permissions too early actually decreases conversion rates.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That would
You have
make
to test
sense.
that. Yeah. It's weird. It's like, okay, yeah, health, maybe more private. So it's really weird what increases and what decreases conversions. Yeah. Okay. Kathy says, sorry, Ian, she can't come up with any jokes for you on the fly.
It's all good.
All right. Ian, before we go to the next app audit, any tips on fundraising? You've raised money for Umano, you've raised money for Gem. What's the difference between, maybe for Umano versus Gem, and then any tips on for those who are looking to fundraise as well?
Yeah, the second time is definitely a lot easier because, again, as I mentioned, you have a track record. You've also built relationships over time with investors, and that just takes time. Like, you need to get to know these partners, and so when it comes time to actually fundraise, it's usually a lot smoother. Whereas like your first time, you're spending the time both building the relationship, getting to know the person, then asking them for money. And it's just, there's obviously a lot of time and like friction required for that. So that's definitely makes it a lot easier. I think the big tip is, like, if you think about what these investors are trying to optimize for, it's like they need this like one thing to basically pay off the rest of their really bad decisions, essentially.
Yeah.
And so if your thing doesn't even meet the bar of like, this could be massively successful and be the next whatever Salesforce or like Facebook or whatever, then it's not even like, it just doesn't even meet that bar, right? So I think that's kind of like number one. And you could have that vision as part of your pitch, and that might be very different than what your actual execution plan and your roadmap, and that's okay. But it's definitely an exercise around kind of pitching them on, hey, this could be the big thing that essentially makes your economics for your business work,
Yeah.
And then number two, I think it's like in any sort of sales and marketing thing, like you definitely want to, there's especially today, there's so many people you can talk to, and so you should definitely optimize for people that already share your thesis, so you're not spending, once they have their thesis, it's really hard to convince them otherwise. And so it's just going to end up being a waste of time. I mean, if you want to do it just for practice and get the reps in and like refine your pitch, that's okay. But if you're trying to actually do it to close money, then that's not the best use of time and energy. And so you definitely want to be very deliberate about seeking out the partners that are like, that share your vision already. And the good part about the internet today is like everyone is sharing their thoughts on Twitter, they're writing blog posts, Substack, etc. So it's pretty quick to see like what their worldview is and whether or not it aligns with what your worldview is for the company. Yeah, that's probably like the two. Yeah, top.
I love your perspective on this because I work with a lot of people, and sometimes I feel like there's this mismatch. So I get it with when you're talking to VCs, here's the vision, right? But when you're actually building the product, you kind of alluded to this, it needs to be very focused, right? The vision's broad, big, great goal. And then too many times they're trying to build the vision in V1. And I'm like, yo, that's your V1 is completely different. Like Facebook had this vision. Facebook was not Facebook when they launched. It was just for Harvard. Uber was just a black car, right? Like you forget that these guys were really tiny and really focused on a niche. First, and then their vision, they ultimately met that vision. I'm sure the vision has changed since then too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Any thoughts or any mistakes? No, I just agree.
No. I mean, that's spot on. I mean, I can't remember if it's true, but I feel like I feel like yeah, I feel like in the case of Uber, right?
Mhm.
Like, yes, and it was just black hours. That's absolutely right. But the interesting thing about that, and it kind of goes counter to the advice I just gave. But that also might be just because they were probably like repeat founders, had a bunch of like connections, stuff like
Right.
that. But
Mhm.
the biggest criticism they got, and you could read the early deck, is that like this was a small market, right? And that it didn't meet the bar actually that I just described around like being massive and being important enough to like pay off the thing. Because people thought about it as like a taxi service.
Right.
They didn't think about it as like a transportation, like a new mode of transportation, and that it would actually replace actual cars. And so that I paused for a bit because it was an interesting example that you brought up where I was like, oh, actually, that's one where it was an example where obviously from the decks it was clear that they weren't pitching it as the big vision.
Right.
Obviously, close funding for different reasons, and then it ended up working out. So
I remember reading a book that Uber was like trying to be like exclusive, right? Like a black car, like a taxi, almost like a limo, right? And then
yeah,
it wasn't. Now, look, I could be wrong on this, but I think I remember this properly. But it wasn't until Lyft came along where they're like, Lyft was like, "Hey, pink mustache, any car, doesn't matter, right? We're gonna be like
yeah,
the Airbnb." And Uber was trying to be this exclusive thing, and then that's where it was like, okay, let me pivot this because Lyft was starting to take off in New York, and then Uber was like trying to be more on the West Coast. And then Uber was like, okay, let's just do it for everybody. And that's sort
yeah.
of, if I remember correctly from this book that I read. But
That sounds about right. That sounds about right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah,
Let's get into round two. All right, one more joke, Ian. All right. I clearly won this round. So you owe me a drink. How about that? All
yeah. I got you.
right. All right. Ian, Stephen King has a son named Joe. I'm not joking, but he is. There you go. Joking.
Nice. Oh my god,
All
these
right.
are dad jokes. Oh my god.
All right, we'll take a look at Kathy's app. She's been waiting. Thank you for your patience, Kathy. She's got a Taro Simple. She's got the plus version, which is the paid version, and then she also has the free version that she actually linked us to. And so we can take a look at the free version first, Kathy, because I'm just going to assume that you're getting downloads on the free version. But congrats on the reviews. I think you're in Canada because you sent me the Canadian link, but you got a lot of great reviews in Canada as well. So congratulations on that. But Ian, go ahead, kick it off for me. What do you see from the App Store presence? Kathy is here, so be kind, Ian. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So okay, so for the first, okay, so for like the title and the subtitle, like okay, I'm clear what the product is. That makes sense. Um, I've heard, and maybe you're the expert here, Steve, so you let me
Sure.
know, but like reusing, you don't want to like reuse the same keywords in like your title and your subtitle because you just, you have a limited amount, and so you want to optimize for having variety. So that's maybe number one. I don't know, Steve, is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I see Tara and I see cards, and I see reading. You could potentially, that's space for like other kind of keywords that you might be able to rank on.
Yeah.
So that's number one. On the screenshots, I mean, there's a lot of text here.
Yeah.
First and foremost, the learn. Let's see. So the actual functionality kind of makes sense. That's my big feedback here is like there's a lot of text. I probably won't read that,
Yeah.
and I don't think much people read it. So if you're really trying to get something out there beyond the headline, then I would shorten that. That way you give them a chance to actually like read the thing. And then we could go into like the visuals of the app once we're in there.
Yeah.
But I do have some comments on that too.
Okay. Let's do. Well, I agree with you, Ian. Kathy, and she's like, "Don't roast me." It's funny. Okay, so what I would say, the look tarot card readings, I would keep like that phrase together because I do know there's search volume for that, and they're not as competitive. So here, I'll just even put this. See, as you can see, it's like tarot card reading, and I know you have meanings too, but I would just call your app tarot card reading simple or simple tarot card reading and try to go all in on that keyword because that's what this app does. You do have some AI powered, but what's the win, right? Like it could just be like simple tarot card readings, get AI empowered reading interpretations, use daily, save your readings, whatever. Big and bold, don't you have too much text, big and bold, and really like optimize the screenshots. We have some case studies. I don't always recommend like optimizing screenshots unless they're not that pretty. And Kathy, unfortunately, it's not that pretty because we have seen like optimizing the screenshots lead to 30%, 91% for one of our clients, other clients, where without changing the keywords, we just got more downloads. So think about really A/B testing those screenshots here. And then title card readings in the title, along with meanings in the subtitle. Look, because you got Canada, there's French Canadian, and there's also Spanish Mexico for the US App Store. And so maybe the Spanish Mexico title says title card meanings, and the title card readings is in the US title, title card meanings is in the Spanish Mexico title, because those both have pretty decent traffic. And so now you're trying to optimize for both and trying to help your US. And then French Canadian, same thing for Canada if you don't have French in that. All right, let's take a look at the app. Boop. Okay. Well, sure, why not?
I always say ask after not to track on those, but
Not check. I always say go for it. And I'm like, all
yeah,
right, man. Because Ian, I'm trying to support the developers, man. Come on.
yeah, oh, yeah.
All right, what do you want to do? 1 card, 2 card, 3 card?
One, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking 1, 2. All right. Oh, okay. I didn't know. There were so many. All right, let's go. Let's do a reading. Let's have some fun. All right, shuffle. Okay, I like this.
I
Feels
like that.
very
Nice
90s.
animation.
Yeah, deal. Love it. Touch card. Oh, I love this. See, very like keep it simple, right? Simple.
Yeah.
All right. Tap card for meaning. Okay. Let's see. What do we got in innocence? The recipient of news or message regarding love or relationships. Interesting. I like it. I'm not thrilled with this card, but like, okay. I don't know what it means though. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have like a feeling reading this. Like, oh, great card. Like today's gonna be great.
Yeah. I mean, I don't use these kind of apps, so I have no idea like what's
I love this
considered
stuff, Ian.
good in terms of like tarot cards and stuff like that. But okay, so like first of all, the onboarding was like pretty simple. There was some like really cool like interactions with the card flipping and like the shuffle. So I think like kudos to that. That's really amazing. Initially, there's parts of this that are like cool in terms of like a visual standpoint, and then parts where I'm like, oh, I wish it could be better. So like things that were cool is it does definitely give me that like, now that I think about it, like it does match the aesthetic of like what a tarot card app would look like.
Yeah.
I live in New York City, and so there's all these like psychic reading stores, and they always have this kind of like weird like cheesy look to them. And so like this kind of fits it, like the illustrative like whimsical like look. So I guess that's on brand. So that's good. With like the actual text and things like that, and like the line spacing, because it is very text heavy, I would like encourage like more line height between the two, more white space to kind of, that's usually what you want to do with very text heavy apps, is like be very generous with the white space. It will just make it easier to kind of like parse, and not feel so crammed and information dense, if you will.
Yeah.
But the actual app itself and the flow and the UX, I think it's good. I mean, it gets
like
the
it.
job done. It's very simple, which is great. I hate apps that are like, there's like a bajillion things and you don't know what to click on and what the flow is to actually like get to the thing you're trying to get to.
So Kathy, I did touch the card and I got this. I think we're all looking for the reading. So maybe the emphasis should be more on the reading and less on the save and restart side of things. I don't know. Your users, if they like multiple cards, but I think maybe just like a bigger thing to show, like tap for reading, like, or reading, get your reading, right? And then, sorry, this is these buttons to start and save, depending on your data, right? Like I'm just going off of just the fly right here, but the save and start could just be easily buttons, like a little bookmark icon, restart, a little restart icon, and then, the back card. So like you can probably de-emphasize save and start unless you see that people are tapping that the most. But like it could be because I personally like, I'm here to get the reading. And this was what I was looking for versus
Wait, was
tapping on
that
the
the
card.
reading? I thought we already saw the reading.
No, so the card was for meaning of the tarot card, and then the reading
Oh,
was this little circle thing. And so when I tap this, which is AI powered, it tells me what it means. And for me, I felt an
oh,
emotion off of this versus the actual meaning of the card.
oh, I see, I see. Yeah, I didn't realize there was like there was two different
Yeah.
paths, like a meaning and then the reading essentially.
Yeah, and you could put like meaning and reading, right? Like, and then
Yeah,
they just make these icons, or yeah, vice versa.
yeah,
But if that's what
yeah.
people
This,
want,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. The save and restart definitely should be like a sub, like deprioritized. I think it definitely looks like the main call to action
there you go.
when you look at that screen.
So the other thing I don't know is like I don't if you're trying to monetize off of this, look, I've worked with a lot of astrology apps, and we work with some of the biggest ones. We're still working with one of the biggest ones, but like, you can charge, definitely one of the best practices is to show, like Ian said earlier, the they're most excited when they're on the onboarding, when they just download your app. That's when they're most excited. And so that's when you can show your paywall and get them to try to pay. Now, if you're trying to get them to buy the pro version, I don't know what I get with the pro version, but I would try to show have an onboarding screen still, a couple of different screens just to remind people what they hear and what makes you different, and then show them the paywall and get them to like pay when they're most excited, which is when the first time they're using the app. All right. We got some.
Do you think based on your experience, do you think a model where like where they had to pay to see the reading, like something like really small, like 99 cents or whatever, would
Yeah,
convert well, or do you think these like pro, you get all this crap for like five bucks a month is like better?
I think I would the my thinking, Ian, especially in the early days, and especially if you're trying to be bootstrapped, is lock up more stuff. So
Yeah,
maybe it's everything else is locked except card of the day, and so
yeah,
or unlabeled
yep,
reading, right? And then yeah, I like your thing. So like the first time, maybe you give it for free, but you could
yep,
also say like, hey, you want to get your reading? Watch an ad or get pro, right? Because that's
yeah,
what we're here for. And
yeah.
so yeah, I like that
Yeah.
idea.
Or you can imagine like kind of like what the paywall news posts do. You kind of get a little bit of the reading and then
Mm-hmm.
it kind of fades off and then you have to like unlock for 99 cents or whatever,
Dude, I
you
just
know?
saw an app that did that really well. I forgot where it was, and it was just like so prompted. But you remember, like, I forgot what the app was called. Hooked. I think it was called Hooked. But it's these
Mm,
like chat stories. They do such
yeah.
a good job of like, I almost bought, and then I guess that's no indication of me. I didn't buy, but like they do such a great job of like getting people really engaged. And then yeah, I like your idea. I was like, you want to see the whole full meaning or reading, then
Yep.
you're gonna have to subscribe and pay. Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Here it is. You have to buy readings. Yeah, I like it. So yeah, I think you can go subscription on this. Try it. It's definitely worked for others. Unlimited readings. You can have whatever type of like value prop you have for the subscription, but people definitely pay for this stuff. I know it. So great job,
Yeah,
Kathy.
it's
Really good.
actually surprising how many people pay for this stuff and stuff like digital content in general.
Oh, I had a great conversation with the client yesterday about all this stuff. Seems letter grid seems like there are so many tarot card readings out there. How's this one different from others? I don't think you need to be that different. Seven said, how did you get 500 plus reviews? Seven, ask for the review prompt. Ian, this works. Ask for the review prompt early, just like Kathy did. Kathy, I gave you a 5-star rating. We have some data that says showing it like literally after the paywall. If you look at the Genie Chat GPT app, it's literally their second screen. They're asking for a review. And so
Yeah.
asking for it early on does really work. And then one in reading per day is free. I like it. And then what do you think about locking things up though? Since my users have had it for free till now, Kathy, like it works. So like it's up to you. Like it's really in your goal, right? One, you may disappoint a lot of your users and get one-star reviews. We're dealing with this for one of our apps. And then secondly, you will make more money. So like, it's sort of a fine balance and it's only you can decide. Uh cool. I love it. Ian, anything that I missed that you want to make sure we cover?
No, I mean this was a lot of fun. It was fun dissecting the different apps.
Yeah, I had fun too. All right. Well, Ian, dude, so good to catch up with you. Congrats. I talked to you when I first found out about Umano. I was like, I got to talk to this guy. This is a great app idea. I absolutely love it. Obviously, I was right. It was a great app idea because it got acquired by Dropbox. So congratulations to you. But go check out Ian's new app. Search for Gem AI. You'll find it in the App Store. Beautiful icon, beautiful, beautiful approach. I know Luis asked for Ian's LinkedIn post. So I will put it into the description in your favorite podcast app or YouTube video. And so you guys can check out his post there as well. Ian, if the audience wants to connect with you in any other way, do you want to send them anywhere else?
Yeah, Twitter, Ian Mendiola, at Ian Mendiola. You can follow me there, or you can hit me up on LinkedIn.
Awesome. His LinkedIn profile is in the YouTube description podcast app, and I'll definitely add his Twitter profile as well. Ian, congrats on the success, man. So good to catch up with you.
Likewise.
And then next week, we got Cleary from Notability. If you guys don't know that app, you should definitely check it out. We're going to talk all about influencer marketing, how she's been able to create an ambassador program. And then just like, frankly, the thing I asked her yesterday when we were preparing for the live stream was like, Clay, how do you get students to pay? Because their app is mainly targeted for students. So we're going to break all that down every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific. Join us, make sure. And then the podcast, if you guys can't watch, it's kind of scary, Ian. Sometimes we'll get these like posts where people are watching us on the TV and I'm like, yo, HD Steve, no go. But if you guys just want to take us along your walk, just take us the podcast. The audio version goes live every Monday on the podcast as well. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Ian, thank you so much, man.
Awesome. This was fun. Thank you. Good catching up.